Most people think search and rescue is about finding people. The ones who do it long enough learn something different. It is about knowing what you found, and then deciding what you file. 3 accounts, 3 separate jurisdictions, 3 field reports that describe something the official record says never happened. All 3 of these narrators filed something, and all 3 watched what they filed disappear into the system. What they kept for themselves. Until now. I want to start with something practical before I tell you what happened. I have been doing remote survey work for 11 years. I have stayed in decommissioned Forest Service cabins before. They are drafty, and they creak, and they make sounds at night that take getting used to. I know the difference between a structure settling and something else. I knew it then, too. Which is why what I noticed on the first night took me until the 3rd night to admit to myself. The cabin was a standard Forest Service structure. Single room, wood stove, 2 small windows. The nearest road was a 4-hour hike. I was there for a 5-day deployment, solo, which is normal for this kind of survey work. I had my satellite communicator, my field kit, a week of food. Everything standard. The first night I heard breathing outside the east window. I want to be precise about this because I know what it sounds like. It was not wind. It was not the structure. It was rhythmic, deliberate. The specific cadence of something standing outside a window and breathing against it. I lay completely still in my sleeping bag for a long time. I did not move toward the window. Something in me had already decided that was wrong without being asked. It stopped after maybe 10 minutes. I told myself it was an animal. I told myself that for 2 more nights. The second night, I heard it again. Same window, same rhythm. I noted the time, 2:14 a.m., and did not move. It stopped after about 8 minutes. The third night, I made myself look. I want to be honest about what I did and did not see. I moved to the window slowly. The moon was up, and there was enough light to see the ground on the east side of the cabin clearly. There were impressions in the mud. Not animal tracks, not boot prints. Impressions, the kind of weight distribution that comes from something standing in one place for an extended period. 2 of them, side by side, approximately shoulder width apart, directly below the window. Whatever had been standing outside that window had been standing there long enough to sink into the mud. I did not sleep again that night. I finished the deployment. I needed the contract, but I kept the wood stove burning and I did not turn off my headlamp. When I filed my incident report, I included the impressions. I photographed them before I left. The photographs are still on my camera. The incident report came back 3 weeks later marked reviewed. No anomalous findings. The section where I had described the impressions had been removed from the returned copy. I still have the original. I keep it with the photographs. Whatever stood outside that window on 3 consecutive nights, it was patient. It was not afraid of the light coming through the glass, and it came back. That is the part I cannot explain, not what it was. The fact that it came back. 3 nights, same window, same time. Impressions in the mud below it deep enough to show something standing for an extended period. A filed incident report returned with that section removed. Subscribe to Obscure Nights, because the accounts that get removed from the official record are exactly the ones that need to be heard. Does the fact that it came back on all 3 nights tell you it was studying the cabin? Or does something patient enough to stand outside a window for 10 minutes at a time tell you it already knew she was there? Drop your answer below. I am not going to tell you I was lost. I want to be clear about that before anything else, because lost was the word the Rangers used when they found me, and it is the word in the incident report, and it is not what happened. I have been hiking the AT in sections for 9 years. I know trail navigation. I know how to read terrain. I know what disorientation feels like, and this was not that. It was August 2023. I was 4 days into a 6-day section, solo, PLB on my belt, logged route with my emergency contact. Weather was good. I was making solid progress and feeling strong. I noticed it around mile marker 11 on the afternoon of the 4th day. I want to say I noticed it because I am a careful hiker and I pay attention. The honest answer is that my body noticed it before I did. I became aware of a tension at the back of my neck, the specific kind that does not come from exertion, the kind that comes from something else. I did not stop walking. I did not turn around. I kept my pace and I started listening. There was movement behind me. Not constant, every 30 or 40 seconds. Something placing weight on the trail and then stopping. Placing weight, stopping, matching my pace exactly. I want you to understand what exactly means in this context. Not approximately, not similar. Every time I took a step, it took a step. Every time I paused, it paused. For 3 miles. I tried breaking the pattern. I stopped suddenly. It stopped. I walked fast. It walked fast. I slowed to almost nothing. The footsteps behind me slowed to almost nothing. Whatever was behind me was not following my trail. It was following me. At some point, and I cannot tell you exactly when because time had stopped meaning anything in a normal way, I realized I was no longer on the trail I had been on. The terrain around me was different. I did not remember turning. I did not remember a junction, but the trail beneath my feet was not the trail I had been walking. I stopped. The footsteps behind me stopped. I stood there for a long time. The forest was completely quiet. Not the normal quiet of a trail at dusk, the specific absence that I have heard other accounts describe and that I now understand from the inside. And then I became aware that whatever had been behind me was no longer behind me. It was beside me. I did not look. I want to be honest about why. It was not strategy and it was not bravery. My body had made a decision that my brain was not consulted on. My eyes stayed forward. My feet started moving. And I walked. I do not know how long I walked. I know that at some point there was a fire road, and at some point there were headlights, and at some point there were rangers asking me questions I could not fully answer. My PLB was on my belt. My pack was intact. My food was untouched. My radio was gone. I do not know when I last had it. I do not know where it is. The Rangers filed it as a disorientation incident. 48 hours, no foul play. Subject recovered in good condition. The section of trail they found me on was 3 miles from where I had been when I noticed the footsteps. I had been moving in the wrong direction for most of those 48 hours. I was not lost. I was led. What do you think was walking beside me in that forest? And does a radio that went missing without a moment the narrator can identify tell you something took it, or something was taken by it? Drop your answer below. The third account tonight comes from a ranger. He was not hiking. He was not surveying. He was assigned to a restricted section of a national park not open to the public. What he found in that section had been there for months, and what he heard on his radio while he was finding it is the reason he never went back. I need to say something up front that I could not say in the official report. I am not anonymous because of protocol. I am anonymous because I have a pension I have spent 22 years building, and I am not going to lose it over something I cannot prove. What I can tell you is what I found. and what I heard. January 2025. I was assigned to a routine perimeter check of a restricted section. Land closed to the public for maintenance reasons. Nothing unusual about the assignment. I had done perimeter checks of that section twice before without incident. I found the camp approximately 2 miles inside the restricted boundary. It was not a hiker's camp. I want to be precise about what I mean. A hiker's camp has a logic to it. Gear organized around a sleeping space, food stored correctly, a fire ring if they are staying long. This camp had been built over time. Structures, not tents, structures, made from materials that had been brought in deliberately. Evidence of occupation across what looked like several months. Fire pits that had been used dozens of times. A water collection system rigged to a tree above a cache of containers. Someone had been living in that restricted section. Not camping, living. I radioed base to report the find. That is when I heard it. My radio, the transmission coming through it, was my voice. Not a voice similar to mine. My voice, describing my exact position, my exact grid reference, the specific approach route I had taken to reach the camp. I had not transmitted any of that information. I stood in that camp holding my radio and listening to my own voice describe where I was and how I had gotten there in real time, as if something had been recording me, as if it wanted me to know. I did not wait to find out what came next. I want to be honest about what followed because I have told this account to 2 other people, and both times I have left this part out. I left it out because it is the part that makes the least sense and the most sense at the same time. As I was moving back toward the perimeter, I became aware that I was not moving through empty forest. I could not see anything. I could not hear anything, but every part of me that had kept me alive for 22 years in the field was telling me that the space between the trees was not empty. I did not stop. I did not look. I moved at exactly the pace of someone who has not seen anything and is not afraid, and is simply completing a perimeter check and returning to their vehicle. I do not know if that was the right decision. I know it was the only one I had. I filed a report describing the camp. I did not include the radio transmission. I did not include what I felt on the way out. The report came back 2 weeks later. The camp had been investigated. No evidence of recent occupation found. I have been on perimeter checks of that section twice since January. I have not been assigned to that specific restricted zone again. I do not know if that is coincidence. I still have the radio. I have not been able to bring myself to use it on a field deployment since January. I tell people it needs calibration. A camp built over months inside a restricted zone. A radio transmitting his own voice describing his exact position in real time. A forest on the way out that was not empty. Subscribe to Obscure Nights right now, because the reports that come back clean are the ones that had something removed. Does the radio transmitting his own voice in real time tell you something had been tracking him long before he found the camp? Or does the fact that he moved at the pace of someone unafraid tell you that was the only thing that kept him alive? Drop your answer below. 3 accounts. 3 moments where the official record and the field experience describe different events. The radio in the 3rd account is the detail that connects all 3 in a practical way. Not as horror, as wilderness safety. Your radio is the single most important piece of equipment you carry in remote backcountry. Not your phone. Your phone is a camera with occasional GPS function in terrain that has no cell tower. Your radio is the device that connects you to the people who will look for you if something goes wrong. Here is what experienced backcountry SAR coordinators recommend, and most recreational hikers do not know. Test your radio before every deployment, not just power it on. Make a test transmission to a known receiver and confirm a response. A radio that powers on but does not transmit is a radio that will fail you at the moment you need it most. Log your radio channel and call sign with your emergency contact before you enter the field. If a search is launched for you, the first thing SAR will attempt is contact on your logged channel. If they cannot raise you on a known channel, the search grid expands immediately. A logged channel narrows it. And if your radio begins transmitting something it should not be transmitting, a voice that is not yours, a conversation you did not initiate, coordinates you did not send, do not stay in that location. That transmission means something in your environment has interacted with your equipment in a way you do not control. Leave the area and report it. Your radio is your connection to the people looking for you. Do not leave it somewhere you cannot explain. These accounts are open. The reports came back clean. To the 3 people who trusted obscure nights with these accounts, the surveyor who kept the photographs in the original report, the hiker who knows the difference between lost and lead, and the ranger who has not used that radio on a field deployment since January. Your accounts deserve to be heard beyond what the system chose to file. Thank you for trusting this channel with them. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. The links are in the channel bio. Every follow keeps these accounts reaching the people who need to hear them. And if you want to support Obscure Nights, we are working toward replacing the AI voice with a real voice actor so these stories sound the way they deserve to sound. The support link is in the bio. This is Obscure Nights, where the cases nobody talks about get told the way they actually happened. Good night.